How's it going, guys? My name is Graham, and welcome to Finding the References, a special branded Easter egg and reference hunting series based on the Henry Stickmin Collection. Something that came up in the Escaping the Prison References video. September 9th is actually Puffball's birthday, so be sure to wish him well, whether that be here on Twitter or anywhere. Just spread some love, wish him well, and let him know how much you love this series. We're moving on to Stealing the Diamond. Watching the intro here, we have a great joke right off the bat. The brand of TV Henry is watching is a Sim song. There are layers to this joke. It's obviously a riff on Samsung, but The Simpsons actually had a really similar joke back in Season 7's Scenes from the Class Struggle of having goofed up brand names for TVs.
I know a genuine Panaphonics when I see it, and look, there's Magnetbox and Sorny.
So I believe Simsong, in yellow writing and a somewhat similar font, is meant to simultaneously be a parody of Samsung and a shout out to that Simpsons joke. I love that in so many ways. When there are notable differences between the Flash version and the remaster, I'll draw attention. One thing that we see early on here is that the worth of the diamond has been raised from the lowly 12 million to 112 million. You can tell Puff re-recorded this line for the mayor.
As the mayor, I hereby declare the Tunisian archaeological exhibit open. As the mayor, I hereby declare the Tunisian archaeological exhibit open.
And I could be wrong about this, but it sounds a little like he included some of his ad-libs after.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
The sort of noises and emotes that voice actors use to settle into a voice or help them get into character. Seems like kind of a silly addition, but I like it. In the original game, Henry has a list of job openings scrawled out that include a prison guard and janitor. This would be because of his antics in escaping the prison, either getting characters in those jobs killed or fired, leaving openings. In the remaster, it's been changed to job ideas. I believe the joke now is just that he pretty well came up with jobs he had recently encountered, and it better preserves the continuity of episode 2 potentially following any of the achievable escaping the prison ranks. If it were left as openings, it would imply a specific continuity. His keys have a nice Angra face keychain, which is a real piece of merch on Newgrounds from back in the day. The Angra face has just been a long recurring character there, and that's just in the intro. There is so much going on in this game that I will just be skipping over any fails that do not include any references. And believe me, there are more that do than don't. Starting with the sneak in route, we can select the jumble hoppers. These extra bouncy shoes are taken straight from Pilot Wings. Strange that some items were switched in the remaster to something more copyright friendly and others just remained as is, although the Pilot Wings soundtrack for this sequence has been replaced. Similar to jumping around in that game, landing in the water deducts 2 points. There is an achievement in Henry Stickmin where if you do this fail 3 times, earning a total of 6 deducted points, then you'll earn the achievement like a D6, which itself is referencing both the dice naming convention for D&D, a standard 6-sided die, and the song Like a G6 from Far East Movement that would have come out the year before Stealing the Diamond. Did I mention that the references in these games become more dense and complex as the series progresses? And I'm only on episode 2. This is going to be a very involved series to cover. With the shrink ray, this is less of any specific reference, but I just love the way Henry becomes an increasingly less detailed stick as he shrinks. There's nothing intentional there, but he just starts to look like different stickmen from different series as he shrinks down. The Liquidificator. We have a Gadget Gabe appearance for this game, a recurring tech blogger who is presumably a nod to Gabe Newell. I did notice in the remade version that there's no longer a specific year, so that might be a small attempt at continuity preservation. At the bottom of the Flash version, we have a bit of a disclaimer from Raffle Co., which I'm not sure if we actually have a company assigned to any of the other Gadget Gabe reviewed products across any of the games. It might be the first time. Anyways, note, Raffle Co. is not responsible for any misspelled words or words used in the wrong context. This is a nod to the whole joke with opaque in the opacitator covered in escaping the prison. Man, Puff must have gotten so many comments about that, considering how often he jokes about it. People get really upset about misused words. we once again have the teleporter, and in fact, we have our first successful use of the teleporter. After failing in crossing the pit, breaking the bank, and escaping the prison. I know crossing the pit isn't a true Henry Stickmin installment, but it plays a special role in the development of the series, and the teleporter is a legacy of that. Puff has said that at one point he thought stealing the diamond would be the final Stickmin game, rounding out the trilogy, excluding crossing the pit, so my guess is that he felt like it would be a fun payoff to have it finally work in the final game, not realizing there would be multiple games still to come. We weren't even halfway really. And while many of the animations are the same across the original and the remaster, this one was redone to be much less harmless and much more painful. On the roof, you can do the Falcon Punch from Captain Falcon. While still being titled the same and the same concept, it had to be reworked to no longer include copyrighted Captain Falcon sound effects. Punch! The only man capable of that punch is the man himself. Invisibility. This one had to be super reworked. It used to have an invisible Henry who couldn't see himself moving and tripping over the edge of the roof. It's hard to see when you're invisible, no? And while that's a funny concept, it doesn't really work with the new background Puff drew having these really high walls. Now, what happened? I lost track of you. Some have speculated that it's a Smash reference. It's super easy to lose track of your characters when they turn invisible. I kinda like the joke that we just straight up don't know what happened to Henry here. Maybe he succeeded, maybe he wandered off the edge. Who knows? We're successfully in the museum on the catwalk and use drop. This itself is pretty straightforward, but now that we're in the room with the diamond, I want to look at what's to the sides of it. These other displays didn't exist before, and I maybe dug around in the game some to delete the layers with the glass to get a better look. I strongly believe that these 3 rings are the rings of power given to the elves in Lord of the Rings. I just really truly want to believe that. And unfortunately, I could not find any references for the other parts of the exhibit. They might just be generic items. I had hoped deep down that the Egyptian artifacts would somehow be connected to mummies alive, but not as far as I could see. The Wormhole Rifle. Originally the portal gun from Valve's Portal, it was reworked into something more copyright friendly. Everything else about it plays out the same, and there is an achievement buried in this lengthy fail text. Clicking that earns you TLDR, with the descriptive joke, not for you apparently, because we did in fact read it. It was not too long. After wiring down next to the case and using the laser cutter, the why you know fail text is based on this old meme format, and many have said that the answer, the laser cauterized it, is poking fun at the lengthy arguments Star Wars fans have had over the years as to whether or not lightsabers cauterize wounds when they cut people. The updated sound effect actually sounds more lightsaber-like. So I totally buy that. The hammer. I like to think that the light tapping completely shattering things is a subtle reference to the way SpongeBob and Squidward carved from marble. There are other SpongeBob references throughout the series and even one more in this game, so it's not such a stretch. In the original version of the following room, there is a much more obvious ninja versus pirate display. Here, they've been separated into 2 different items, but with a box still being labeled Pirate Ninja. This isn't a specific reference, but just building off of the long-running internet debate of who would win in a fight, pirates versus ninjas. It's been a thing for a very long time. You'll find it all over the place on different forums, especially on things like Newgrounds. There are several stick fight animators who would make animations playing off that idea. It's a fun thing to riff on. And with Puff's ties to Stick Page, the appearance of that here comes as no surprise. I wanted to zoom in on these boxes in the Flash version that are on screen for like a second. There's not much there. The labels include an authentic 1502 ship cannon, miscellaneous World War II firearms, and 1 Triceratops skull, all shipped to the National Museum of History and stuff. I mean, it's pretty funny to think of how eclectic everything they have in this museum really is. I guess most national museums are. And while these boxes no longer exist, we do have an update to the title on other posters. It is now the National Museum of History and Culture, which sounds far more formal. The stone stickman holding an apple seems kind of generic, but some have said it's likely a reference to a well-known statue of the Greek goddess Hera. I mean, yeah, they're both statues and holding apples, but the comparison doesn't seem to go much further than that. There is also a holy grail of sorts in the foregrounds, but it appears to be a generic stand-in rather than a specific reference. I compared it to Monty Python, Trivia Murder Party, as many different things as I could. Someone even said the Persona games, and I couldn't find anything that looked quite like it. It just has that generally familiar feel. Maybe someone else can find something more specific. We can vault ourselves with the plank and fly past the guards, and here we can see Ted McAdams, the driver from Breaking the Bank, talking about someone getting arrested.
And after that, they just up and arrested him.
Whoa, Really? Yeah.
It's presumed to be Winston Davis from the lawyered up rank, his old partner, but it's left vague to preserve the continuity of any rank of escaping the prison being canon. He could be referring to Henry, or something totally unrelated. I have no idea how I never noticed or thought about this before, but this scene in the Flash version totally ruins the spatial continuity of that previous scene. I mean, the virtual camera could just be on the opposite side, but it just doesn't match up well. It makes sense that Puff would flip it around and redo it now. When we snap neck, I mean, it kind of works, just maybe the wrong neck is snapping. But I told you about stairs, is from the webcomic Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff, which itself exists inside the Homestuck universe, and the achievement name Bump, as well as the associated face, are further building off of that reference. With Rifle, the gun itself has been changed to something I think a police officer would be more likely to carry. It still seems super overkill to me, but I don't know anything about guns. And that fail text is just pretty generic commentary on gaming. Selecting the diamond, we have the undetected ending, which is now Unseen Burglar. Henry spends his money on all kinds of things, including a boat, the SS Stickmin. If we choose to go at the wall with the pick, which itself may seem generic, but when paired with the sound, the creeper, and the blocky explosion, it's all a Minecraft reference. Although somehow getting blown up is still a success here. In the remaster, all of this that follows is more clearly made into a QuickTime event, although in waiting out this lengthy conversation where our boy, Dave Pampa, discusses getting fired for not inspecting the cake thoroughly before handing it to Henry and escaping the prison.
Yeah, so apparently there's something in that cake, and he used it to escape. And then I got fired. Pretty lame, huh? Yeah, I don't really like this.
Please, shut up.
Oh, I was just trying to have a conversation, you know, since, I mean, we're partners, so I just wanted to get to know each other a little bit, you know? I just kind of wanted to have a conversation. It's just, you know, just to lighten things up. I mean, what's gonna happen in a museum? I mean, really. You feel a draft.
His character bio also talks about that same negligence, how he went from the police force to museum security. If you choose the gun, we still have the fail text, "Quick, pretend you were joking," but with the addition of "good one," right guys? Which I think quite generally might be making fun of prank channels. Also, not sure if this is a reference, but I like the switch to this stunned face. It's pretty weird seeing characters in this series without their iconic long eyes. In choosing the plane, it's been made much more clear in the animation that Dave knocks himself out by running away, and I like how when you try to dash into the exhibit, you see this different angle where he's clearly knocked himself out and is laying on the ground still behind the pillar. In the Flash version, there's this large stone slab next to the Tunisian archaeological exhibit. You can zoom in and kind of read it at this ridiculous angle, or wait and look at it straight on. It appears to be a Wikipedia page copy and paste, no jokes, just a way to add detail to the background. It's not really worth me reading out. We can slip over to the retro room, which as you might expect is packed with game references. In a game that already has such a high density of references, they really milked it here. Again, it makes you wonder why certain things are changed and others aren't, like a full-on creeper being outside. But Metroid became Alien, the Half-Life crowbar stayed the same, which makes sense since a crowbar is very generic. Although when you use it, you still get dumped on with a bunch of Half-Life head crabs, and the fail text went from "why does that always happen?" to "man, I hate when that happens." The Pokeball became the Good Ball, which is more of a play on Great Ball, and the Super Mushroom is now just Mushroom, even though it's the same idea and totally looks the same. We lost the Mario Kart item block in favor of a Banjo and Kazooie puzzle piece, and the spiky green shell in the foreground somehow became a more direct reference to a Mario Kart blue shell. We also have the Zelda musical instrument stand with the Ocarina from Ocarina of Time, the Wind Waker or Baton of Wind from Wind Waker, and the Spirit Flute from Spirit Tracks. When using the Good Ball, we enter a very authentic recreation of a Poke battle, complete with Gen 1-like sound effects for Tim and Joe when sending Joe into battle. I love that detail. We instead send out Missing No, the famous missing number glitch and exploit from the first gen Pokemon games, and it brings it all crashing down. It used to have a blue error screen from Windows 95, but that has now been made more generic. Converting the binary from that fail text comes out as Fear Missing No. There are a few unique pop-ups at this time. Runtime error. An error has occurred. Press this zodiac symbol to continue. This one is Leo. Lol, what? What is this? I don't even... A bunch of just straight up random nonsense. Missing DLL. OMFG DLL not found. secret info. Press the sun in sneaky ending, which is actually referencing back to clicking the sun and escaping the prison. And just a bunch of random binary, you can't convert this to anything, it doesn't say anything. And metal.ng for the Newgrounds medal. Press OK 3 times. If you click OK on any 3 of these pop-ups, you earn the medal, which I guess in the full game is now an achievement. When we use the mushroom, we're enlarged the same as a Mario game, but instead of gaining, like 6 inches, Henry becomes several stories tall. And very quickly in the corner here, we see a sonic ring in its own case. When the pterodactyl picks up the guy, it used to be a Wilhelm scream, but has now been replaced with a unique scream. For anyone unfamiliar, the Wilhelm scream is just kind of this inside joke in the filmmaking industry. I believe the original title was something like Man Being Eaten by Crocodile. And now that you've heard it, you will hear it in almost every movie. Any movie that has at least a tiny bit of action in it, at least. It's a great little insider joke, and now you're in on it. I actually think they could have left that in. I'm pretty sure it's public domain at this point. I mean, it was really heavily featured in There Is No Game Wrong Dimension.
I can't stand hearing him scream. Finish him with your Bartitsu, Holmes. It's unbearable.
How dare you steal from Mr. Wilhelm Scream?
So I think it probably would have been fair game. At this point, we get our first look at the CCC somewhere in the southwest, which we already knew we were in a western desert. Apparently now it's southwestern. I kind of miss this guy's extra tall sunglasses to fit his eyes. I guess they look cool. But we still do get this silly version of Dragon Ball Z's over 9,000 meme.
It's over 9?
Yeah.
Fun little twist on that. He then puts on his sunglasses while making the pun a pressing situation, and someone in the background is watching CSI Miami with the yell from Won't Get Fooled Again by The Who, the intro song to that show.
Pressing situation.
Who's watching TV? Get back to work.
Which then became a key component to the Horatio meme. This is all maintained in the remaster, minus that copyrighted song from The Who.
Pressing situation.
Who's watching TV? Get back to work.
Sorry, Chief. I'm going back to work.
But the joke of putting on the pun and the sunglasses and all that still works without it. If choosing divide by 0, there's a silly little moment where this robotic automatic calculator types in leet before dividing by 0, with the general joke being that dividing by 0 is a mathematical impossibility and thus tearing a hole in the universe. When using the tactical nuke, everything about the countdown and the pop-ups are all Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 references. In-game, that requires 25 consecutive kills, so the fail text is joking that they probably earned it unfairly by camping out for those kills. Satellite, just a quick, good old-fashioned shoot-da-whoop. Puff seems to be a big fan of these, becomes a recurring meme and joke throughout. He says as much in his fail text. For Gears, we summon a giant robot that in my mind causes far more chaos than it seems to resolve, but this earns you the just plain epic rank, previously the epic way ending. Going back to the beginning, we can instead bust in. There's nothing in these first few events, but when racing down the hallway, we see the 4 separate helmets for the main Castle Crashers cast. The mace has been changed to flail, I guess for historical accuracy, but the ending there is the same. When stealing the diamond, we can choose tow cable. We get to see a little more of Ted McAdams' conversation from earlier and realize that we're just destined to ruin this guy's life no matter which occupation.
And after that, they just up and arrested him.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, that's when I decided I should probably get a different job. I figured night guarding is much less dangerous than driving a... Crap.
And while fleeing, we see a 6-star wanted system in the top right. This maxed out at 5 in Grand Theft Auto 5, but it could go as high as 6 in other installments of that series. When we use the Rock, the sniper who swoops down in the helicopter, confirmed by the bios, is a reference to the sniper from TF2, known as Mr. Mundy, which is meant to be said like Crocodile Dundee. In stealing the diamond, he is Samuel Mundy. The story in TF2 is that the characters are hired mercenaries, so the bio line of being hired for a job is a quick nod to that. The original game used the TF2 sniper voice clip,
Wake up out of your head, wanker!
which then had to be re-recorded for copyright issues and is now Puff's voice.
Wave goodbye to your head, Waker.
Boom headshot is a pretty common thing these days, but it originated in the amazing web series Pure Ponage with FPS Doug in the absolute earliest days of YouTube.
Boom, headshot!
Boom, headshot!
Which is referenced a few times in this series. I'm glad to know Puff similarly grew up with that ridiculous series. It's still worth a watch. And giving Mundy a more sheriff-like hat is a fun play on things. The sticky grenade comes straight from Halo. The bubble is likely the sonic bubble shield. And if you kick the diamond off the bridge, you win the aggressive way, which is now the much catchier Intruder on a Scooter. In both games, there is this connoisseur achievement for collecting all the paintings throughout the museum. The remaster kindly removes the paintings as you click them, so it's much easier to keep track of, and added a new collectathon-like counter. I believe it's specifically Banjo and Kazooie, but I know other collectathons have that same sort of format. There were only 7 in the Flash game rather than the now 30. The ones that did not make a return are Zeus, and this lol what pear, which instead has been turned into an apple. So really Zeus is the only one that didn't come back. Better watch out for those copyright strikes from those Greek gods, you know? Most of the paintings of these 30 are themselves references. I'm gonna move through that pretty quickly. This No You Luigi is a somewhat obscure meme based on a scene from Hotel Mario. These two are references to Super Mario 64, the tiny huge island. This cute frog is the Dat Boy meme. The captain from SpongeBob SquarePants, what is presumably Rasputin? And while Hitler himself broadly isn't really a reference, he is slapping his desk like the commonly dubbed Hitler downfall scene. We have the Heavy from TF2, Hattie from Battle Block Theater, Hyrule with Death Mountain in sight, the Roll Safe meme with it being switched out for a more thematically appropriate for this medieval gallery, Deus Vult Infidel, and the explosion in the background also seems like it came from that, little girl running away meme, and I guess there's a joke about rolling safe having to do with you rolling through the exhibit on your scooter. So it's a mishmash of at least 3 things there. I could have sworn this big red-faced guy was from something. Puff claims it's more of an inside joke, actually. If you can find his old vines, then you would understand better. I searched all over. Sadly, I think those were lost with the demise of Vine. Leonidas from Zack Snyder's 300, the Zelda CDI games, 3 different screensavers from super old versions of Windows, the brick maze, the stars, and the pipes, which was my personal favorite of those 3, and the screensaver art in general being my favorite out of any of these references. There is also this big bull-like statue. It also looks familiar. I thought maybe it was from a Zelda game. I'm not very confident in that. I cannot place what this thing is from. Even Puff couldn't remember what exactly this cow is meant to be. Scanning through the different bios other than the ones I've already touched on and ignoring the ones that are absent of any references. Jeff Stickley, I bring him up only because he's one of only a few characters to have a stick-based name. It's not something that Puff leaned on very heavily when naming people. It just kind of seemed like an obvious joke that a lot of them would have stick in their name or doodle or pen, I don't know, things like that. Billy Cludd is the guy who whacks you with a billy club. He was clearly born for this. Jacob Rose shares his last name with Ellie. Maybe someday we'll get that much hoped for spin-off / prequel that answers some more questions about her history. Perhaps Jacob Rose will have a role to play. Sam Turner, someone pointed out on Twitter the other day that we have a canonically non-binary character in the game, which is pretty cool. In the original cutscene they appear in the Flash version, they did not have hair. That's a new addition. Rupert Price is yet another returning character, showing again that this game must take place geographically near the last 2, since it's within Rupert's jurisdiction. Johnny Panzer, his bio refers to his awesome skills, which makes sense since he manages to sharpshoot us in several different fails. Panzer is also German for tank, which is just kind of a cool last name. James Lancelot is a guy who maybe loves his name a bit too much, living it up as medieval times and claiming relation to the knight of old while working at a museum. Come on, dude. Joseph Joe appears to be the first of what becomes many JoJo references in the series. It's clear that Puff got into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure sometime after fleeing the complex but before completing the mission, as that's where the references become really prominent outside of the bios. Which someone also pointed out that maybe in the last game, Sally Q is a spin on Sue's Q, which is one of many JoJo characters that is based on old songs and musicians. That sort of layering of abstraction becomes a bit too much for me, so I left it out of the last video. And Corporal Bill Bullet, a badass name, but also a reference to bullet bills from Mario. I'm actually a little surprised this video didn't inflate in length quite to the degree I thought it would. I guess I technically did cover 2 installments in the previous video, but the Breaking the Bank segment was only like 3 minutes. Yeah, I kind of just thought this would be half an hour, the next one would be 50, and then all of a sudden each episode of this was going to be an hour of references. It's a much more manageable length so far. Let me know if I missed anything at all, and I'll be sure to include it at the top of the Infiltrating the Airship episode. Whenever I've reached the end of this series, I guess I'll just be SOL, and anything I missed will just be permanently absent from this video series, which is kind of unfortunate, but I don't see a way around it. I'll just have to be extra sharp and extra careful when I make that final video. Shout out to patrons of the channel. Thank you guys so much. I hope broadly everyone is okay with the way I'm starting to space these out. The reception to the last one was fantastic. I just need to switch things up a little bit for myself and give myself a little bit more time to put these videos together, so I hope you don't mind the way I'm slotting other things in every other week, but I think they're fun videos that anyone could enjoy. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm looking forward to doing this for the full series. I'll see you again soon.